Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to go my review of Friday Night Smackdown. Starting off the night, we have Jimmy Uso coming out to the ring. He walks out to the ring wearing a crutch from his broken toe. He gets in the ring, grabs a microphone. He talks about War Games. Jimmy talks about his family and what they've done in the business. Jimmy also talks about Roman, Jay, and Solo, and how sometimes family fights and sometimes they reunite. After that, he's quickly attacked by Drew McIntyre with a Claymore kick. Looks like Drew McIntyre has his sights set on the Bloodline. After that, cameras go backstage. We have Aldis talking with Bianca Belair. Aldis says without Jade Cargill, Belair may have to relinquish the tag team titles. And then Naomi steps up and says that she'll be Belair's tag team partner, so she does not have to relinquish the tag team titles. Some interesting stuff there from Naomi. Teaming up with Belair. Moving on from that, we go into our first official match of the night. It's a U.S. Women's Title Tournament semifinal matchup. It's Meechin taking on Tiffany Stratton. I thought it was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Meechin and Stratton, with Stratton keeping the pace of the match. Meechin then hits a DDT for a near fall. Stratton gets up, hits a Alabama slam in the middle of the ring on Meechin for a near fall. But Meechin ultimately hits the finish on Tiffany Stratton, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match, and moving on to the finals in the U.S. Women's Title Tournament, is Meechin. Hats off to Meechin for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a Roman Reigns segment. Roman says that it's been a rough year. He also talks about losing everything, his family, his title. Then Roman talks about January 6th episode of Raw on Netflix, their debut episode for Raw on Netflix. Roman says it will be himself taking on Solo Sikoa on January 6th, Tribal Chief versus Tribal Chief. Definitely interesting stuff there between Roman and Solo Sikoa, and I will talk about what the Raw for January 6th could be and what it could entail for January 6th for Raw's debut episode on Netflix. I will talk about that in a little bit at the end of the podcast. Moving on from that, we have Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes was supposed to face a mystery opponent on SmackDown. That mystery opponent is none other than the return of Braun Strowman. The match itself was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between Hayes and Strowman, with Strowman keeping the pace of the match, with Strowman ultimately hitting a devastating power slam on Carmelo Hayes. Pins for the 3. And your winner of the match is Braun Strowman. Hats off to Braun Strowman for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is LA Knight taking on Solo Sikoa. I thought it was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth match between Knight and Sikoa, with Knight and Solo Sikoa both exchanging in the middle of the ring. Sikoa was trying to keep the pace of the match, but Knight attacks Fatu and Tama Tonga ringside. Knight then hits an elbow drop off the top rope for a near fall. Fatu then attacks LA Knight. Match ends in a disqualification. Fatu and Tonga then attack LA Knight. Solo then hits a Samoan spike on LA Knight. Andrade and Apollo Crews come out to the ring to attack Fatu and Tama Tonga, but Solo hits a Samoan spike on Andrade and Apollo Crews. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's a U.S. Women's Title Tournament semifinal matchup. It is Bayley taking on Chelsea Green. Thought it was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between Bayley and Green, with Bayley keeping the pace of the match. Green hits an enziguri, and then Green ultimately hits an unprettier on Bayley, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and moving on to the finals to face Meechin for the U.S. Women's Title Tournament, is Chelsea Green. Hats off to Chelsea Green for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go to the next part of the night. It's Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes face-to-face. Cody Rhodes comes out to the ring, greets Michael Cole. Owens' music hits, but Owens does not come out to the ring. Cody Rhodes says they will move on without Owens. Michael Cole then asks what Triple H gifted to Cody Rhodes for Saturday night's main event. Cody doesn't say anything, kind of keeps it hush-hush. Owens then is shown on the Titantron in his car outside the arena. Owens then mocks Rhodes. Owens says that Rhodes was more interesting as Stardust. Rhodes then walks to the back, but Owens quickly attacks Rhodes backstage, and Owens then hits Rhodes with the title. Looks like they have obviously setting up the storyline here between Owens and Rhodes leading up to Saturday night's main event. A couple of things I'm going to talk about, man, when it pertains to Friday Night Smackdown before I get the hell up out of here. Number one, was it a decent show? Yeah, it was definitely a decent show. Obviously, the main vocal point of SmackDown was obviously Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. It's one of the best storylines going on right now in SmackDown. And obviously the build-up leading towards their main event matchup at Saturday night's main event is going to be absolutely incredible. For what it's worth, man, I think, there's a lot of vocal points going into last night. Obviously the main vocal point being Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. The other interesting thing is the situation with Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill, they said that she was injured when she was thrown off a loading bay, landing on top of a windshield of a vehicle. That was debunked. She was not injured, but they written her off TV. She's doing some outside projects right now outside of WWE. But the main question, the mystery of that is who was the person that attacked Jade Cargill backstage and threw her off that loading bay? A couple of names pop in my head as far as who do I think actually attacked Jade Cargill. Number one, I thought was Bayley. I thought Bayley was the person that attacked Jade Cargill. There was some hostility there between Bayley, Jade Cargill, and Bianca Belair. Belair and Cargill didn't really trust Bayley, and obviously they were really close with Naomi. My wild card pick here, and honestly, I think the person that most likely attacked Jade Cargill was Naomi. I think Naomi's going to turn heel. It looks like, now that Naomi's teaming up with Belair with the tag team titles, I feel like it's something where Jade Cargill kind of took the spotlight away from Naomi. And I think Naomi got pissed off with Jade, and she took Jade out. And now it's just Belair and Naomi. And Naomi only wants just to be her and Belair. I think the ultimate person that actually attacked Jade, in my honest opinion, was Naomi. I think Naomi attacked Jade because of jealousy. I think she took out Jade so she can be closer to Belair. And eventually we're going to have Naomi versus Belair in a singles match because Belair eventually is going to find out that it was Naomi herself that actually attacked Jade Cargill and took her, out of the scene for WWE for the foreseeable future. But SmackDown, like I said, man, SmackDown wasn't bad. Obviously there's a lot of build up leading up to Saturday night's main event. And like I said, the main vocal point was obviously Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. Obviously there's a lot of hostility there. And the storyline's been great. I think the storyline with Kevin Owens and Rhodes has been really good. There's a lot of vocal points in that as well. Obviously, Randy Orton has a lot to do with this storyline. Obviously, he was friends with Kevin Owens as well as Cody Rhodes. Owens hit a pile driver on Randy Orton, which ultimately took Randy Orton out and put Orton on the shelf with the devastating pile driver that he landed on Orton. And that's how all of this started. But the history between Owens and Rhodes goes back from what Owens is saying from the time that, Rhodes joined the Bloodline. When he teamed up with Roman Reigns at Bad Blood to take on Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. Obviously, there was some hostility there from Kevin Owens. Owens was pissed off, considering everything the OG Bloodline tried to do to Kevin Owens and try to take Kevin Owens out of WWE permanently and try to get him to retire. So, obviously, there's some hostility there. But like I said, man, the build-up leading up to Saturday night's main event has been great. I'm definitely looking forward to the U.S. Women's Title Tournament final between Meechin and Chelsea Green. That's going to be a fantastic matchup. And it's going to be a big moment. It's a big moment for, either Meechin or Chelsea Green. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, when these titles were announced, whether it be the Women's U.S. title or the Women's Intercontinental title, it's a big move, man. It's a big move for WWE. Obviously, the women are doing fantastic things on the main roster, and it gives them an opportunity to be showcased more on television with the addition of these new titles. I'm still firmly believe that, if I was WWE, I'd probably scrap the tag team titles because, in my honest opinion, WWE doesn't really have a tag team women's division to really go forward with the tag team titles now that there's, the Intercontinental title as well as the U.S. title on top of, the world titles as well. So I think the tag team titles need to be scrapped, to be honest with you. I know obviously there's Damage Control, there's Pure Fusion Collective, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. But there's very limited tag teams for the women on WWE. I know there's Isla Dawn and Alba Fire, but there's like 4, maybe 5 makeshift tag teams that they're putting together to try to form a women's tag team division. I think it's not needed. And if anything, to be honest with you, I think it kind of takes away, with everything that's going on right now with the addition of the U.S. Women's title and the Women's Intercontinental title, it takes a lot away of, I would say importance, if you will, of the women's tag team titles. I think it's going to be an afterthought, to be honest with you. With all this approaching Belair backstage and saying that with Jade Cargill being out, that they were going to relinquish the tag team titles. To me, I feel like it's going to be an ultimate slow burn, and hopefully, those tag team titles do go away. I don't think they're needed. It's no disrespect towards the women on the main roster. I think they're doing fantastic things. And I'm all for them having the U.S. Women's Title Tournament as well as the Women's Intercontinental Title Tournament. It's another singles championship for the women. gives them more TV time, showcases their craft, and in the ring, and and I think WWE's doing great things by doing that. But the tag team titles, I feel like with what's going on right now, and if you really look at the narrative, I mean, there's 4 total, if you will, singles women's championships. You got the women's world title, you have the WWE women's championship, you also now have the addition of the U.S. women's title, as well as the women's intercontinental title. That's 4 singles championships now that the women of the main roster, whether it be Raw or SmackDown, can now compete for moving forward, which I think is way better than what the tag team titles had to offer, to be honest with you. And honestly, there's a lot of history with the women's tag team titles, not necessarily in a good way. And I think ultimately it should be something that WWE should consider scrapping with the women's tag team titles. But besides all that, man, like I said, I mean, at the end of the day, SmackDown, they're firing on all cylinders. Raw is firing on all cylinders. Obviously, the build-up on Raw and SmackDown leading up to Saturday night's main event has been, in my honest opinion, awesome. I'm a big fan of the nostalgia, and I think bringing back this event and what it meant to professional wrestling and WWE, there's a lot of memories, a lot of history with Saturday night's main event. And, having Jesse the Body Ventura part of the commentary team for this event, it just makes the event very special. Obviously Jesse the Body Ventura was a part of the first ever Saturday night's main event, which I believe was either 1986 or 1987. So, I mean, it's been around on and off for many, many years. So to have that, it just, to me, I'm a big nostalgia guy, always have been, always will be. Seeing Jesse the Body Ventura back in the day, Mean Gene Okerlund, also, again, absolute legend, rest in peace to Mean Gene. And then having WWE bring this back, I think it pays homage, obviously, to the legends. And I will reiterate, a lot of these guys don't get their flowers or their just due. To be honest with you, it's kind of an afterthought. And obviously, a lot of younger fans don't know who these guys are, like a Ted DiBiase, Jesse the Body Ventura, Coco Beware, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Tito Santana. A lot of the younger fans obviously are not going to know who these guys are because it wasn't part of their generation, which, I mean, it's understandable. Time keeps going forward, and new fans are created and stuff like that, and new fans are locked in. There's fans that have been just tuned into WWE, and now they're big fans, or fans from 2000, fans from the 80s, the 90s, the 70s, so on and so forth. So a lot of these legends are not really thought of anymore because they're not really seen that much on television anymore. But like I said, man, I'm a big fan of nostalgia, and I think it's a great thing that WWE is bringing back Saturday night's main event. Having Jesse the Body Ventura a part of this show as well, it's a big deal. Obviously, I think some legends are also going to be in the house as well for this event, for Saturday night's main event. So I'm all for it, man. And it looks like Saturday night's main event's going to be sticking around for a little while, because I also found out during watching SmackDown, it was also announced that they're having another Saturday night's main event, I believe, in the middle of January or late January in San Antonio, Texas, which is going to be absolutely incredible. So it looks like Saturday night's main event is going to be sticking around here for a little while with WWE, and I think that's fantastic. I think what WWE and Triple H are doing right now for Raw and SmackDown has been absolutely great. Obviously, the Raw show going to Netflix, which I am going to talk about, I think it's a great deal. I think what WWE is doing right now, man, they're miles ahead of any other wrestling company out in the world right now, in my honest opinion. And with Raw going to Netflix, to be honest with you, I watched Raw for a long, long time. And obviously streaming services wasn't that big back in the day when I was growing up. So, now seeing what Netflix is and how it's a global brand, as well as WWE, and having Raw debut on a streaming service being Netflix, is going to be absolutely incredible. You got Roman Reigns taking on Solo Sikoa, Tribal Chief versus Tribal Chief. There's supposed to be a lot of appearances on that first debut episode of Netflix for Raw. I heard The Rock's supposed to be there, John Cena, Cody Rhodes, obviously Roman Reigns. Becky Lynch is also rumored to be there as well, her return. There's a lot of shit going on for Raw debuts episode of Netflix January 6th. So it's going to be one hell of a show. And obviously there's concerns too with Netflix, with it being on a streaming service, lag, or, it might, just based off what happened with the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight, there was, lag issues, that, the event wasn't being shown correctly, it wasn't really being time-stamped correctly. So, I mean, obviously there's going to be issues leading up to Raw's debut episode on Netflix January 6th, but, the debut episode looks absolutely stacked, man, from top to bottom. From what I heard, we already got one match announced between Roman and Solo Sikoa, Tribal Chief versus Tribal Chief. So, like I said, man, WWE is firing on all cylinders, and like I said before, I think the build leading up to Saturday night's main event is absolutely incredible. So with that being said, this is my review of Friday Night SmackDown. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.